Hi, you guys. This is Jen at Perfectly Imperfect. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I am going to show you a furniture makeover that I have a feeling may be a little bit controversial, especially for those who don't like painted furniture, especially if it's vintage. So, like I've said before, I can understand and respect that everyone has different opinions and different tastes. Life would be pretty darn boring if we all liked the same things, right? Music, art, home decor, furniture. So it's okay if you don't like it, but if you don't like painted furniture, this may not be the channel for you. The most important thing about this makeover, you guys, is that this was brought to me by a client who had a vision for it, and I made it happen. And it turned out even better than she had hoped for. And that makes me so happy. This was a vintage Hoosier cabinet that was gifted to her by her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law is a longtime client of mine. She was no longer using the Hoosier cabinet anymore, offered it to her daughter-in-law, and she said, yes, but I need it to look a little bit different. This doesn't really go with my style. So she brought it to me. I love that she went this route. You know, she could have tried and found something from one of the big box stores, paid too much money for it because oftentimes they are overpriced and under quality, if you know what I mean. So the fact that she took a vintage piece that had great bones, wasn't quite her style, but brought it to me to make it her style, and now it can live a brand new life. I just love that. I love that about what I do. So without further ado, I am going to show you one of my most recent makeovers on a vintage Hoosier cabinet. Let me know what you think. Let me start out by showing you the before pictures that my client sent me. You can see it's a super cute vintage Hoosier cabinet. I loved it. And then here are some of the inspiration photos that her daughter-in-law sent me. She wasn't looking to make it look exactly like these. She just wanted to give me an idea of her color choice and the style that would fit her home best. So as you can see here, I have it in my home workshop and I have it separated. The top does come off. Now, the tricky part about this piece, you guys, is that top is an enamel top. And I had told her that I could try and paint it. I've never painted one before, but I could definitely try. She wasn't a fan of the red stripe around the edge, and she was willing to let me give it a go. And there were a few steps that I took to ensure that the paint would adhere correctly. She said that if it didn't hold up down the road, they may replace that top anyway. So we decided to go for it. You can see there is some veneer damage that I will have to repair. And then here is the top part of the cabinet. This one drawer has a very cute clock and a mirror, but the drawers just did not shut all the way. There was always a gap that I just could not fix. And I decided to do something different with that top part anyway, that you guys will see later, that I ended up being very, very happy with, and my client loved as well. As you can see, it is definitely a very cute vintage piece with so much character and charm. I really loved it. And to be honest with you guys, I was a little unsure myself when I first started if I should even paint it. But again, this is what my client wanted, and the outcome is really beautiful. So I'm happy I went for it. The first thing I did was scuff sand that enamel top. I used a 220 grit sanding pad on my Festool sanding system. It allows me to sand right inside of my house without getting any dust. I absolutely love it. I'll make sure to link it for you. After that, I cleaned it using my favorite. This is Anvil by Melange. It is a cleaner and degreaser in one. It's non-foaming, non-soapy, so you don't have to come back in with clear water and rinse it again before you paint. It's by far my favorite cleaning product, and again, I'll make sure to link everything for you guys. Just giving this piece a good scrub down before I move on to the extra steps. Cleaning your pieces before painting is so very important. And you can see here that top part comes right off. So I ended up taking it off to make sure that I could clean all around the sides, and I got the bottom too. And then I ended up completely taking it off so that I could prep it away from the rest of the piece. Now, the next step for something like this or any slick surface like laminate or Formica, you're going to want to use a bonding primer. In this case, I am rolling on Melange's clear bonding primer. I do end up doing a few coats of this. I started out working inside, but you can see just having it set up on the floor like that wasn't the easiest way to do it. So later on, I ended up moving it outside and put it up on some sawhorses. But like I said, I just started by rolling it and making sure I was covering the entire surface. I then took a brush to just kind of smooth it out. And when you do use a brush with the clear bonding primer, make sure you use like a cheap brush. In this case, it's a chip brush. You don't want to use one of your good painting brushes because the clear bonding primer is, in essence, kind of sticky and you don't want it to ruin your brushes. While I let that dry, I decided to move on to the bottom part of the piece. And the first thing I did was vacuumed out the inside and gave it a good cleaning, both inside and out. You guys saw me using Anvil by Melange earlier to clean the exterior of my pieces, but usually for the interior, I use just a regular cleaner or good old Dawn dish soap and water. I just find that it works well and it's easily accessible and cheap and it does the job. I then started removing all of the hardware, and we are going to go with different hardware, but one of my tips to you guys is to save your old hardware because you never know if you may have a future piece that you'd like to use it on. And here I am just cleaning out the inside, making sure to get rid of any dust or old smells. This one really was not very dirty at all, but it's still essential to clean the inside and outside of all of your pieces. Remember I told you guys before that the door on the top part was not really closing correctly? I tried everything I could. I'm going to show it to you here. See that gap? I could not get that fixed. So I decided to completely remove the top two doors on the top part of the piece to give it like an open shelving look. And if you'll remember from my clients' inspiration pictures, I feel like that fits well anyway. But don't worry, I didn't get rid of the doors or that cool clock and mirror. I did make sure to give those back to my client in case she ever wanted to use it for anything else. So here's a look at the top portion of this piece without those doors. Like I said, I feel like the open shelving is going to end up looking really great. She can display things on there. I am going to leave the shelves and the interior wood, and I will have to fill the hinge holes on the top using a wood filler, and then I will just sand it smooth before I paint. I'm getting really excited at this point because I'm loving the look and the vision for this piece. So now, like I said, I ended up bringing that top outside and putting it up on my sawhorses. I just felt like it would be easier to work on it like this, and the weather was conducive for it. It already has a couple coats of that clear bonding primer that I showed you earlier, but then I decided to do something unexpected or unplanned. Because of that that red stripe along the side, I knew it was going to take extra coats of paint to cover that. So I decided to grab a can of off-white spray paint that has the primer built in, just to give that an extra coat of coverage before I start with the actual paint. While I let that dry, I came back inside and started prepping the top portion. I did fill those hinge holes, and now I'm sanding those smooth, and then I will go ahead and give the rest of the piece a good scuff sand. Scuff sanding is typically done before you paint, just to help give the piece some tooth for better adherence of the paint. I am using 220 grit. You don't have to sand it completely smooth. You're just removing some of the extra finish, again, to help aid in adherence of your paint. Make sure that you scuff sand your entire piece, all of the nooks and crannies. Sometimes I have to do it by hand if my orbital sander just won't get into everything, but you do want to make sure to get it all. Now I turned it up on its side. I knew there was some chipping veneer, and here I am kind of peeling away the parts that were already falling off. You're going to want to make sure to do this before you fill it. Otherwise, after you fill it, you could still have those pieces chip off. So try to chip off as much as you can that's already peeling. I am filling this with Bondo, and Bondo is great, but you have to work very quickly. It is a 2-part system that you mix up and then apply to your piece. It dries very quickly. That's why I said you have to kind of work quickly. And I'm just spreading it on over that damaged area. I will let that dry and set up. And then later on, I will come back and sand it smooth. Sometimes you have to do multiple rounds of either Bondo or Bondo and another wood filler, just to make sure that you are covering up all of the damage and it won't be seen through the paint. I'm using regular all-purpose Bondo here. You'll want to look for it in the automotive section of your hardware stores, but I will link it for you as well. It can be purchased online, like on Amazon. And like I said, it's a great product. I was very intimidated by it at first just because of the mixing and working quickly, but it really does work great. Now, while that is curing, I am going to go ahead and work on the drawers. And again, I need to scuff sand all of the drawers before I can do anything else. I am using 220 grit sandpaper here with my Festool, just kind of removing a little bit of that finish. And now I'm going to clean the drawers again using Anvil by Melange, my favorite cleaner. It's a degreaser as well, and you can literally just feel how much cleaner your pieces are after you use it. You really can use any cleaner you'd like. This is just my favorite. Now I'm going to go ahead and tape off the drawers before I paint. make sure that you cover up the back of those hardware holes so that your paint does not drip through and get onto the inside of the drawer, and also tape off the edges where you don't want to have any paint. As you can see, there's a lot of prep work that goes in to this before you can get to the fun part, which is painting, but all of this is very necessary, and the better prep that you do, the better outcome you will have. The color my client chose for this piece is called Turtle Dove Taupe by Melange. It is so beautiful. It's my favorite neutral shade by Melange. Now remember, with this paint, the primer and top coat are built in, so there is really no need to prime your piece. You certainly can if you want to. I just don't find it necessary with this paint because it really is just that good. There are a couple instances in which I will prime, and that is one if I am worried about bleed through. In that case, I will use a stain blocking primer, or if I'm worried about adherence. And you guys saw me using that bonding primer earlier on the enamel top. But like I said, that can be used for laminate or for mica or for any slick surfaces. So if you are worried about adherence of your paint, you can use that bonding primer before you start using the paint itself. The brush I'm using is my absolute favorite. It's my go-to. It's called the Rachel brush by Melange. It's an oval brush and it's just perfect for me. I love the grip. It holds a great amount of paint. It goes on so smooth and I just love it. I will make sure to link this brush for you guys as well. I exclusively brush all of my pieces. I don't spray because I don't want to. I don't have a space for it. But the beauty of this paint is that it is self-leveling, meaning that once it dries and cures, you will not see any brush strokes. It is just a beautiful finish, a flawless finish that you're going to get whether you brush it or whether you spray it. Let's get back to that Bondo and the areas that I had to repair. Here's what it looks like after it was completely dry and I sanded it down with 220 so it's also nice and smooth, and you can see how nicely it filled in the damaged areas. And then we're back to cleaning, you guys. I'm using Anvil by Melange and my rag and just making sure that the whole piece is nice and clean. The whole piece has been scuff sanded as well. I didn't show it on this part because I didn't want to be too redundant. You guys kind of get it since this is a two-part piece. I already showed you guys that on the other one. Now that it's all nice and clean, I am going to start painting. And I just love this color. You guys, don't be scared by what many people call the scary first coat. This will end up needing probably 2 to 3 coats. But as you can see here, even if it is a quote unquote scary first coat, look at that coverage. It is very, very good, and it just paints on so nice and so smooth. Now, some of you guys might think this looks white, and I have to admit, in pictures, it does look a little bit white, but I promise you it's the most beautiful, like toasted almond, light taupe. It's just a gorgeous color, and like I said, it is like a perfect neutral. If you don't want white or don't want gray, maybe you don't want a darker tan, this is just a perfect choice. Let's go back outside and check on the enamel top. The spray paint is completely dry, so now what I'm doing is taking a very fine sanding pad and just giving it a nice easy, smooth sanding before I apply my paint. I'm using my Surf Prep rad pads. I'll make sure to link these for you as well. And then after that, I just come back in and clean off any dust that may be on there from sanding. Once that's dry, it's time for turtle dove taupe on the top of the enamel. You guys, I was not sure about this, but I have to tell you, after 3 coats of this, and remember, I did use 2 coats of the bonding primer as well as that spray paint. This paint was not coming off. I made sure to do a scratch test, and I really gave it some good scratching to make sure the paint was adhering well, and I was beyond impressed with how it came out. So while it does take a few extra steps to paint a surface like this, I can tell you that it works and you can do it. So don't be afraid to give it a try. After that first coat of turtle dove taupe was dry, I brought it back inside and I gave it another fine sanding with my Surf Prep rad pad, just to make sure that I had a smooth surface, especially since I was working outside. You never know what debris might fall onto your paint. So I just wanted to get it nice and smooth before I added additional coats of paint. And here I am putting on the second coat. Again, it's going on so nice and so easy, so smooth. I did end up doing a total of 3 coats of the turtle dove taupe on this. And again, the top coat is built in. You do not have to add an additional top coat with this paint. However, I always tell people that if they would like to, they certainly can. Because there are so many different parts to this piece, I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit in this video, but that's just kind of how it works. There's a lot of waiting time when it comes for waiting for paint to dry or waiting for wood filler to set up. So it's actually kind of nice that I was able to work on the different parts of this piece individually. And then I came back and I did my second coat on the bottom part of this hutch. It looks so good, you guys. I just love this color and I love this paint. I have been painting furniture for over 10 years. I have used several different brands of paint, and this is by far my favorite. I've been using it for a few years now, and I don't think I'll ever go back. There are some times when I use a different brand if I'm going for a different look, like if I'm wanting, chippy or distressed or an old world rustic look, but 90% of the time I am using Melange paints. It is by far my favorite. So easy to use. It's very beginner friendly. And like I said, primer, top coat, built in, self-leveling, so many beautiful colors to choose from. What more could you ask for? While that second coat is drying, I can move on to the top of the hutch. And here is some of that Bondo repair again, you guys. And what I am doing here is using a layer of Melange's stain blocking primer before I paint. And I'm only using it over the repaired area. I don't think that it will bleed through, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to do a quick layer of the stain blocking primer just over the repaired part first. And then once that is dry, and again, this piece has been scuff sanded and cleaned, it is again time for my first coat of paint, Turtle Dove Taupe. Like I told you guys before, I do plan on keeping the shelves and the inside wood. So I just have that taped off, and then I am going to paint the rest of it. And I am getting even more excited now that I'm seeing the paint go on this piece. And I feel like my client's vision and my vision for this piece is really starting to come to life. I can't remember if I ended up doing 2 or 3 coats on this piece, but it was either 2 or 3. The coverage is really excellent. So let's talk about the hardware that I decided to go with. I ordered this on Amazon. I will link it for you guys. It is just a very simple classic knob. It has a good heft to it and a very good price. I use these quite often. If they don't have the exact patina that you are going for, you can always spray these. And now I am just installing the hardware, and you can kind of see this piece, just a portion of it, you guys, and it's looking so good. I love this color so much. It is, like I said, it might look white to you guys, but I promise it is the most beautiful, like toasted almond light taupe. Just the absolute perfect neutral shade for really any piece that will work in any home. Now that I have all of the hardware on, let me remind you of what it looked like before. It's a very cute and charming piece, and here are some of the inspiration photos my client sent me. We weren't going for something exactly like this. All of these pieces are perfectly one of a kind. She just wanted to give me an idea of her style, and I think we nailed it. I love how this turned out. I think having that open shelving really added something to it. Now she can use it for display, but she still has all of those drawers and those cabinets for storage, for things that she doesn't want to display. I love the look of it. I love the color. And most importantly, my client does too. The coverage of this paint is excellent. The durability is excellent. And look at that. It's self-leveling, no brush strokes. It really has the perfect sheen. It's not matte. It's not gloss. It's just a perfect satin finish. What do you guys think? Do you like this makeover? I hope you do. But if you don't, like I said, the most important thing is that my client does. And I could not be happier that I was able to bring this piece back to life for her. You can use my code JEN10 for 10% off your melange orders. I'll make sure to link everything I used. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching.